On the 1st February 2025, the Union government presented the budget on the floor of the parliament. After the announcement of the budget, there were certain questions raised regarding the numbers on the Indian Railways that were reported in the budget. For example, the Ministry of Railways had reported an estimated revenue receipts of around 92,800 crore rupees. And this was 11% higher compared to the last year's receipts generated by the Ministry of Railways. So there were questions to the railway minister as to whether the government would be increasing the railway ticket prices to account for the higher revenue receipts. At that point of time, the railway minister brushed aside this speculation and stated that the government, as of now, was not thinking about increasing the railway ticket prices. Rather, the increased revenues would be accumulated with higher number of passengers using the Indian railway system. But now, the reports state that starting July 1st, 2025, the government is going to hike the railway ticket prices. Hello, welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Before I start the discussion for today, please have a look at this particular MCQ. Those who want to solve it can pause the video, solve the question, and those who do not know the answer to this question, wait for the next 5 to 8 minutes. I will have a discussion regarding this key answer for the MCQ given here. Now, those who are interested in joining our courses, the prices right now are at 19,999. If you use the code IAS English, you will also get an extension of up to 12 months. But once you join the course, what you will be getting? You will get access to the recorded or the live classes of Hindi medium, English medium, as well as English medium. You will get access to quality study material, the mentorship assistance, the prelims, as well as the mains test series. So, those who are appearing for the civil services examination 26 or 27, if you're interested, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Now, let's decipher what has been reported in the newspaper. Today's Hindu newspaper carried this particular article. According to the report, the government of India, starting 1st to July, would be hiking the railway tariff rates. Now, in case of railways, what is the proposal as of now? For AC classes, the fares will be increased by 2 paise per kilometer. For the second class, it will be increased by half a paise for every kilometer after the distance is 500 kilometers. The non AC, the hike will be 1 paise per kilometer, and for the suburban as well as the monthly season tickets, there will be no changes in the fares. Now, what are the important concepts or the points you need to understand associated with this newspaper article? Point number one, the Indian Railways operates as a departmental undertaking. It operates as a departmental undertaking. What is the meaning of this? Whenever you talk about government organizations, please understand there are three types of government organizations. One is a departmental or ministerial undertaking. Second one is a statutory or public corporation. And the third one is government company. The third type is a government company. In case of the first, it is part of the government itself. The ministers are part of the government. The allocation of the funds, the utilization of the funds, the generation of the incomes, everything is counted as a part of government finances itself. In simple words, there is no distinction between this as well as the government. Example for this is Ministry of Railways as well as the Postal Department. The second one, just a little nugget here, the statutory corporation. The government passes a bill, introduces a bill, gets it passed in the parliament, and under the provisions of this particular bill, there is one entity which is set up. Example, Food Corporation of India. Third one is the companies which are set up and operate according to the provisions of the Companies Act. Now, come back to the discussion here. The Ministry of Railways or the Indian Railways operates as a departmental undertaking. And according to the government data, more than 7 billion passengers, which is expected to further increase in the coming years. More than 7 billion passengers utilize the infrastructure of Indian Railways to move from a point to another point in India. Now, whenever you talk about railways, there are essentially 2 points, or let's say two concepts, or these are divided into two types. The railways is divided into one, the passenger segment, and second, the freight segment. Let's connect all of this to the current affairs now. The last time when the government had announced increase in the railway fares was back in the year 2020. After so many years, the government of India is proposed to implement one more round of the railway tariff or railway ticket price hikes. What is the reason? What is the logic behind it? And is there any committee that you can quote if at all a question is asked associated with this? Whenever you talk about railways, I said there are two components in the railways, passenger and freight. And both of these generate revenue for the government, are the source of income for the Ministry of Railways. But the fact of the matter is, in case of the freight, the government has kept on increasing the rates at a much faster pace compared to the rate hikes in passenger segment. For example, there is a Niti Ayog report. Please remember this. There is a Niti Ayog report which mentions that between the time period 2009 to 2019, that is essentially for 10 years, the freight rates by the Indian government were increased by 91%. Whereas for the same duration, that is the 10 years, the passenger rates were increased by just 28%. And what is the impact of all of this? There is a term called as cross subsidization. Remember this. There is a term called as cross subsidization. What is the meaning of the term cross subsidization? The government, when they will provide the good or a service for different consumers, same good or service is offered, is sold at different prices. That is, you're talking about railways here. The railway service is being offered for passenger transportation. It is being offered for freight transportation. That is essentially goods transportation. But the services are being offered at two different rates. The railways offers the passenger transportation at subsidized rates, and this is nothing new in India. Historically, it has been doing the same thing as a social welfare measure. And on the other side, when it is about to be transporting the freight, it will charge much higher rates, thereby generating higher amount of revenue here, using it to provide for the losses or the under recoveries that they will incur whenever they transport passengers. But within this also, there is one more very important point. One more very important point. Whenever you talk about passengers, please listen to me very carefully now. There are different types of services provided for passengers. There is a suburban railway mode of transportation, suburban. Second one is the AC mode of a transportation. The AC coaches are there. And the third one is the non-AC coaches. That is a sleeper, general class, etc. or second class. So suburban, AC as well as non-AC. I'm making this distinction because there is a very important report that you need to quote. According to the standing committee report, according to the standing committee report which was submitted in December 2024, it has highlighted certain issues. When you talk about suburban, the government will provide the services, incur expenditure, generate certain amount of revenue. But how much of the money that they have spent is recovered by the government? According to this particular committee report, around 30% of the expenditure done is recovered. What about the non-AC travel? In case of the non-AC travel, around 39% of the expenditure is recovered. And in the context of AC, out of these three different modes of transportation here, It is the only AC which generates a surplus of around 3.5%. It generates around a surplus of 3.5%. Please have a look at all of this and you will realize if you want to maintain the financial stability of the Indian railways, and if you do not want to continue cross subsidizing the railways as a mode of a transportation, you want to make it as a profit oriented, let's say the structure, then there is no other option but to rationalize. Underline the term rationalize the tariff rates. No doubt you have to rationalize. And in this particular situation itself, there is one more word that will come into discussion. There is one more concept, operating ratio. Please remember this also. Operating ratio. In short, OR. What is the meaning of the term operating ratio? How much money you need to spend to generate revenue. How much are you spending to generate revenue? Let's say if you are spending 90 rupees and you are generating 100 rupees revenue, then your operating ratio will be 90%. If you are spending, let's say, 85 rupees and you are generating 100 rupee revenue, then your operating ratio will be 85%. So by now, all of you should have understood this. The operating ratio, lower it is, more benefits in the form of higher revenue generated by Indian Railways. And in the context of Indian Railways, the operating ratio is around 98% today. It is around 98%. In fact, I distinctly remember this. During the time of pandemic, in one of the years, the operating ratio had crossed more than 100%. It had hit a high of around 107%, which means you're spending more amount of money compared to how much you are generating, which puts a lot of burden on the ministry to allocate funds to generate revenues, etc. According to the latest data for the government, the operating ratio is hovering at around 98% plus, just above 98%. But you need to drag it down, and one way to ensure that this operating ratio will be dragged down to, let's say, 94, below 94, is to generate other or additional sources of revenue. Although increasing the tariff, increasing the price of the tickets is not the only solution. The government can implement multiple reforms even in the context of the freight transportation to generate additional sources of revenue, which the government is actually doing under the National Rail Plan of 2030. Right? So, by imposing these kind of higher, let's say, railway ticket prices, how much will be the additional revenue generated by the government? According to one estimates, the government will be able to generate additional 700 crore rupee amount of revenues. So these are certain very important concepts that you need to understand in the context of the government announcing from the 1st July the hike in the railway fares. But what do you think of this? Should the government target only these kind of tariff rates, or let's say the railway fares? Should the government increase more in terms of percentage the railway fares for AC coaches? Or your argument will be it should not be done at all. Do let me know what you think about this in the comment section of the video. So let me get back to the MCQ that I have given in the earlier, that is in the beginning of the session. Consider the following statements. The operating ratio for the railways has been consistently increasing in the last 10 years. Focus on the word consistently. Now, is there any data point to answer this kind of a question? I've taken this screenshot from the PIB website. You will see the operating ratio increasing, falling down, increasing, falling down. So the term consistency doesn't apply here. In fact, I told you this 21 and 22, because of the pandemic, operating ratio had crossed 100, it had hit a high of 107%. So, first statement incorrect. The Ministry of Railways is a departmental undertaking. Absolutely correct. It is a departmental or ministerial undertaking that is counted as a part of the government of India itself. The railways cross subsidizes the passenger fares with freight rates. collect to more amount of money in the freight transportation, use it to basically compensate for lower amount of revenue that you generate in the passenger segment. Yes, third statement is also correct. So second and third statements are correct. Right option will be option B. Only two of the statements are correct. So that's it from my side in this particular video. If you have got any kind of a knowledge from this video, show us your appreciation by hitting the like button. And if you're yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.